Welcome, good afternoon. It's the Mind Behind Leadership Live here on talkradio.nyc. My name is Graham Dobbin, and every week we're looking at what leadership means, what practically happens within business, and what we really try to do is grab some real experiences out there. This is about being able to understand what influences others, what matters to others, what makes a difference on maybe how we make decisions, what's personal and sometimes what's personal and gets in the way on business. In the last few weeks, we've had people like Mark Randolph, the former CEO and co-founder of Netflix, as a guest. We've had Ginger Johnston, a leading expert in human connection. If you want to catch up with any of those, please just go to talkradio.nyc and you will be able to see all the shows listed there. This afternoon, I'm absolutely delighted that we've got someone who not only understands the human connection, but has also helped leaders and company owners make those great decisions. We've got Michele Berdinis. Michele graduated from Brown University and from the University of San Francisco School of Law. For 18 years, she represented startups from formation to acquisition and everything in between. And now she's having a blast in New York with Beeline Legal, her own legal services startup. Michele has learned tons from watching her clients grow and face challenges, and we'll probably dig a little bit into those, what those challenges have been a little bit later. But she's actually learned, what she says is she's learned even more by doing it herself. Her startup, Beeline Legal, provides trademark registration legal services through a web-based expert system that equips clients to protect the trademarks they love. And we're going to talk about that because this could be really personal. Beeline's friendly, engaging approach helps clients understand what they need, what they'll get, and what's next without all that legal speak and the unexpected, unpredictable legal fees and costs. I'm hoping we're not on the clock this evening. Michele is also passionate about leadership development, especially for women and especially in New York. I know for a fact that Michele is heavily involved with women's networks and professional forums that look to promote and inspire women within business. Good afternoon, Michele.
Hey, good to see you.
I just want it to be noticed that when I did the intro there, I don't know if you noticed that I managed to take the dates out. I took the dates out of when you graduated. I thought that was only fair, even though you gave me them. What do you enjoy most about what you do?
You know, I've actually reflected on this a lot in my lifetime, and it's going to sound so corny, but what I love is when I can help somebody. Either I can get them to a place where they never have to worry about a problem happening, or where I can negotiate them a really great deal, or I can fix a problem that's been brewing for a short time or a long time. It just charges me up. It's like if just being able to give that kind of a help is really, really great. And I'll give you an example. This is one of my favorite negotiation stories ever. It wasn't even it was an acquisition. It wasn't mine. It was my law partner's. And he was going on vacation and he asked me to babysit it for him. He was going to be gone for a week. He just said, we got 3 issues left and we can't seem to come to an agreement on those 3 issues, but we got them left. So just babysit it. You don't need to make any progress. Just don't let my deal be dead when I come back. So, so off he goes. And on Monday morning, I get a call from the attorney from the acquirer. I'm representing the target of the acquisition. So the attorney for the acquirer, who's a former litigator, which is never a good thing, calls me on the phone and he says, I need a copy of this contract that your client's entered into. And, you know, I've got to have a copy of that. So I walked down the hall to the paralegal and I said, David's deal. I just, you know, we need the attorney from the other side's calling. He says he needs this. And she said, yeah, this is where it is on the server. And as I turned around and started to walk out of her office, she said, you know, we provided that to them with our original due diligence delivery. And I have sent it to him 2 other times besides that. And I said, oh, really? And she said, yeah. So I went down the hall back to my office. I called the guy back and I said, my paralegal says we've sent that to you at least 3 times. and he started screaming at me. Now,
Wow.
lawyers don't yell at each other. I mean, we yell sometimes, but we don't yell at each other. And he is screaming. He is just tearing me apart over the phone. And this was in the day when we had like actual phones. And I'm sitting there and I'm on the phone and I just go, and I hung up on him. No, you don't do that. So I hang up on the guy and that is it, didn't hear from him. He called back the next day to apologize for his behavior. And then by way of making it up to me, he threw his client under the bus on issue number 1. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know, right? He's not supposed to use his client's negotiating strength as an apology gift to the other side. Okay, so then he called me the next day for something else, and I didn't even bother to check with my paralegal. I just deliberately pissed him off. And he started screaming at me, and I hung up on him. And he called me back the next day, and he apologized and threw his client under the bus on issue number 2. And then I did it a third time. And David came back the next week and he was like, so how did you get these resolved? I was like, you really don't want to know that. And this is not me. My negotiating strategy is always assume good faith on the other side, right up until the minute that they show you that that's not what they're doing, and then kill them. But it was this guy, I mean, what an utter and complete breach of his fiduciary duties to his client.
When did you know that point's happened? I'm curious, because if you assume best practice or best intent from the other person, when is that point that you know it's not best intent? You know, it's not just a mistake. It's not. Okay. I suppose I'm wondering. Okay, I get when screaming it. I wonder if there's anything a little bit more subtle, because my guess is that doesn't happen all the time.
It has never happened before or since. No,
Wow.
It is usually more subtle than that. And it is, when I'm dealing with an attorney, it is when we're talking on the phone and we are both, now remember, I'm not a litigator, I'm a deal lawyer, an intellectual property lawyer. So this isn't like, we're not arguing. And, we'll be on the phone and we'll be trying to resolve something, and we will agree based on everything that we've seen that this is the best way forward. And then I go back and tell my client, this is how we're going forward. And the other side goes back and just can't face their client with this perfectly reasonable resolution. And so then they come back to me looking for more. And that becomes a habit, right? Sometimes you go to your client and they're like, yeah, that's nice for you, but we're not doing that. I get that. But if you're doing that on a consistent basis, and you're telling me one thing when we're on the phone together, and you're telling me another thing after you talk to your client, either you don't know your client very well and what their goals are, or you're just lying to me on the phone. So one of those two things is true, and I don't really care. If you don't have good client control and good client communication, that's not my problem, and I just can't trust you anymore. So I'm going to use different tactics, and I'm going to use whatever tactics it takes. I'm not really a bulldog kind of a person, but if what's needed is for me to do something nasty or to yell at somebody,
You can do it. So maybe in the after the third break, we'll get you to just demonstrate that. No, please don't shout at me. Whatever you do, don't shout at me. It's interesting. I was working with a group yesterday. We were talking about influencing without authority. Now, one of the things that you're speaking about now is kind of coming up with logical arguments. We've got these things that here's the evidence that proves it. But a lot of this research and studies, I was quite surprised with this, shows that inspirational drives with evidence is actually more appealing in the workplace to get people influenced, to get people to actually make movement. So something that inspires them rather than is just a logical. And I've got to admit, anytime that I've been in negotiations with law, working with lawyers, it tends to be logical arguments. Have you ever seen that difference? So everything you're talking about there is logical, is based on this shows me this evidence, therefore that's the decision.
I mean, I think acquisitions are, a lot of transactions are very emotional. And there is that component to it. I mean, one of the first questions I always ask my client when they get an acquisition offer, and I almost always represented targets, like maybe 85% of the time. So when my client gets an acquisition offer, my first question is, tell me how you would feel if this deal died.
Okay.
Right? Because I need to know that. Like, I need to know how hard can I push? How much leverage am I going to have in the connection with this negotiation? And it's usually once people see a metaphoric bucket of money, it's really hard. They usually get pretty invested in getting the deal closed pretty early on. You don't end up with much negotiating strength. There was my favorite client ever. I'll just put it out there. I asked them that question, and it was a very, really great offer from a public company to acquire them. And I didn't even know these. This client wasn't my client all along. They just came to me for the acquisition because their attorney wasn't really equipped to handle it. So the first time I'm meeting these guys, the three founders, and we're talking about the deal, and I asked them that question, and they kind of looked at each other, and it's like, we don't care, not them, somebody else. We love what we're doing, so whatever. And it was like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
So that gave you the permission to go as far as you really wanted to.
Oh yeah, and man, did we get a great deal. The best part of that deal. So I don't know if you know what an earnout is, right? So
I do, but I'll tell you what, it might be worthwhile if you just give a brief summary, just in case there's anybody else.
So I want to buy your business. I want to pay you $10 million. You want 30 million. You think your business is worth 30 million. I think it's worth 10 million. And you think it's worth 30 million because of not where it is today, but where it's going.
Yeah.
So we create a formula that says, okay, so for the X number of months, years after I acquire you, I will give you some percentage of something. I don't know, every dollar of profit over whatever, or whatever it is. We create a formula that says, after the deal closes and for the next X number of years, I will give you more money based on the actual performance. They're very difficult to negotiate. But that said, so in this situation, we had a really good offer, but we ended up with an earnout. And we hadn't really negotiated what the earnout was going to look like. So there was just an exhibit to the agreement that was going to have that on there. And one morning I'm just sitting there working on the deal, and I get an email from the acquirer's attorney with the formula. And I looked at it, and there was no cap, right? It's usually, we'll give you X percentage of whatever, but not to exceed Y. Yeah. And there was no not to exceed. Because, and I don't know if it was a mistake or they thought we were so full of it, right? And I called my client, and it was like, oh, wait, I have to send this to you. Wait till you see this. This is hilarious. And they looked at it, and they're like, because they know perfectly well what they were going to accomplish. Yeah. And they blew it out of the water. But they looked at that and they said, they are in trouble now. And oh man, they got a lot of money out of that earnout because they didn't cap it. And it's not my problem.
Hey, we're going to go for a break. When we come back, I'm just going to link something. When I mentioned earlier that we've spoken to Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix, and he told us about that negotiation that he had with Blockbuster, and then just a couple of things that happened there. So I'm going to maybe talk about that, and also what happens to people when they go from zero revenue to being acquired or having that bucket of money in front of them. You're listening to talkradio.nyc, the mind behind leadership. We're with Michele Berdinis, and we'll be back right after this.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you interested in having a better relationship with yourself, others, and God? Greetings. I'm your host, Dr. George Andow, for the show A Journey Through into Awareness. On my show, we journey into the awareness that the mind of God is the true seat of our personal consciousness. We join together each Monday at 7 p.m., so tune in on Talk Radio NYC.
Did you know that nearly 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. battles mental illness? Hi, my name is Albert Daba. I'm the host of the show Extra Innings. Extra Innings, I discuss the topics of wellness, mental health, and the experience of surviving multiple suicides within my family. Listen live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern to Extra Innings for discussions with sports figures, artists, mental health professionals, many others. That's Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Mind Behind Leadership. We're speaking with Michele Berdinis. We're talking about negotiations. We're talking about acquisitions. We're talking about kind of those life-changing moments that I suppose probably every business person dreams of. Whether they actually want to take it or not is another matter. But we get to that point. And we had, just before the break, we had Mark Randolph on. And I always wonder when we hear all these stories about these big businesses and what's happened, whether the stories are absolutely true. And he confirmed to us that they've been trying to deal with Netflix have been trying to deal with their Blockbusters for quite a number of weeks, and Blockbusters has just been ignoring them. Then all of a sudden, him and his business partner were on vacation, and they got the call that they needed to go. So they turned up in Hawaiian shirts, flip-flops, shorts into the boardroom of Blockbusters, and he said it was going really well until they named the price, which was 50 million. And they were basically laughed at. And what Mark said was, you know, they were misguided in that what they looked at on the business was how much they'd borrowed, how much they'd raised, how much kind of was outstanding, what would clear it, and that was 50 million at that point. So they said the business was worth 50 million to clear everything. So, and Blockbusters didn't think it was, obviously. And things have moved on since then, and it's not the same business as it was, and neither is Blockbusters. But what happens with business owners when we begin to talk about numbers like that? When we talk about 50 millions, and you know, this is a big bucket of cash.
It is a big bucket of cash, and I mean, you know, for most of my career, I was doing deals quite a bit smaller than that. And, you know, they weren't mom and pop, but they were they were pretty small companies, and a lot of times it was an acquisition, and the owner was getting older and kind of wanted to retire in the early part of my career. And the problem, that you'd come in and you'd meet with them and, well, how much do you think you want to sell this business for? And they would quote a dollar amount. And you'd say, okay, well, how did you come up with that? And they would say, well, that's how much I need to retire. And it's like, the acquirer doesn't care how much you need to retire. They care what the business is actually worth.
Yep. And
those were hard conversations to have with somebody, to tell them that this thing that they've been working on in many cases, for 10, 15, 20 years is not worth what they'd hoped it would be. And, then they have to make the decision whether to continue and build it up bigger before they retire, or to, take what they could get and go. But it's real, those kinds of things are really hard. But later, as I started working on larger transactions, particularly acquisitions by public companies, really what it would come down, there's the dollar amount is really important, but the terms are also really, really important, right? And, a $50 million acquisition, that's an asset deal, right? So I'm going to buy the individual assets.
Yeah.
By the time you pay taxes on that, you're going to have half of that. If we do it as a merger, you're going to have way more money at the end, but they don't want to do a merger, right? So it also depends kind of on the structure and how we're actually going to do it. And a lot of times, even in bigger companies, they're not really focused on that kind of stuff, right? They're not focused on the structure of the deal and how that's going to impact them from a tax point of view, and how it's going to, and what are the payoff terms, right? I mean, okay, we're going to give you $50 million for your company, but we're worried about these 8 possible liabilities. So we're going to take $10 million and put it in an escrow over there for 3 years, and to make sure that bad thing doesn't happen. And we're going to take $5 million and put it over there to make sure that bad thing doesn't happen. And, and it's so that's part of what happens is somebody hears that number, they get really, really, really excited because it is a good number for them. And then they realize, okay, it's really not going to be $50 million in a garbage can on top of the table. That's just not happening. And then they're afraid to have me negotiate those things because they don't want to lose it altogether, right? So they don't want the $10 million in the escrow for 2 years. Yeah. Maybe you could take $5 million in the escrow for 6 months, right? But they don't even want me to do that. They don't even want me to try because they're so afraid that the acquirer is going to walk. And that's always tricky. Then that's why how bad would you feel if this deal doesn't go through kind of thing is really critical. But Blockbuster through it, man.
It's an interesting thing, and understanding that at the very beginning, how would you feel? Because as soon as the dollar is big, we're waving that under, and then the emotions change. So at least you're getting a foundation before anything happens. Do you ever get that kind of Antiques Roadshow moment where somebody says, I think it's worth $3, and you say, no, it's actually worth 3 million. So it's actually the other way. Do you ever get that moment where somebody's just kind of hopeful that it's worth a little bit enough? But I never. Okay, just checked. I didn't think so. Everybody overvalues it. Okay.
Yeah, it happens at the beginning too, right? So you have somebody come in and they start talking to you, and they've got this idea, and this is what they're going to do, and then they say, but I need to raise some money to make this happen. And it's like, okay, well, how much money do you need to raise? I don't know. I think I need to raise $1 million. Okay. How much of your company are you willing to give up to get that $1 million? Well, I don't know, maybe 10%. Oh, so your company is worth $10 million right now. You haven't made anything. You've never sold anything. You don't even have a prototype of the thing you're going to sell. It's worth $10 million right now. No, of course it isn't. Well, that's what you just told me. You got to get realistic. If you want $1 million, you're going to have to give up $1 million. You're going to have to sell $1 million worth of stock. And I don't think anybody's going to take 10% of the stock for that.
I suppose then that raises the question where you've got people who are maybe inventors, you've got people who are creative, they've got people who are really, really good at what they do. But as a business person, it's just not happening. They kind of don't understand it. We see it on something like in the UK, it's Dragon's Den or Shark Tank in the US, where people come in and put valuations on the business. And from almost the get-go, you're looking going, this will never happen. This just won't, the good negotiation's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And it's to start a company, to do a startup, you have to be that level of optimistic, right? If you couldn't bring out that optimism, if you didn't have that vision, then there's no way you're going to do this, right? So it's expected. It's kind of this is the flavor ice cream you get when you talk to an entrepreneur, and that's okay. That totally works. My job, is to talk them down off that ledge. At least, okay, so you need this money. You have to have this money to make this thing happen. So what are you going to do? Are you just not going to do it, or are you going to take maybe a little bit less money, give up less of the company, bootstrap your way up, maybe take $200,000, use that to get the prototype up, maybe get to your first sale with that amount of money. Then let's, now we have a higher valuation. Okay, now we'll raise some more money. And they don't like that because then they spend all their time just raising rounds of financing. And that's really hard too. And it eats up all their time. And the answer is, this ain't easy, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. And what you need around you are advisors that can kind of help you through it. And you have to be, you can't be mean to people, right? You can't say to them, this is the dumbest idea I've ever seen.
You can be mean to people, surely.
It doesn't help though.
I know. I'm just giving you permission if you really wanted to.
Okay. I mean, it really doesn't, right?
No.
What you're trying to do is help that person get to where they want to be. And they have a very specific route in mind for getting there. And that's not going to take them there, right? So you focus with them. You have the common thing is we both want you to reach that goal.
Yeah.
So how are we going to get you there? And there's a couple of different roads we can take. So which one do you want to take? You want to refinance your house and use your own money? No. Okay. You want to borrow the money? No, you don't want to do that. Okay. Well, do you want, here's all the different ways you can go about doing it. And these are the realistic ways. So pick one of those and let's do that, because that's how you're going to get there. And as long as you're focused with them on the goal, and that's the same in my trademark practice. My slogan is, helping you protect the trademark you love. It may not be the trademark you love. It'll be a trademark you love. It may not be the one you have in mind, because we may not be able to do that one.
We're actually going to come to that. Let's come to that after the break. I'm really curious about trademarks, IP, copyright, kind of the misconceptions and misperceptions around those, and why they're so personal to us as well. You're listening to The Mind Behind Leadership. We're speaking with Michele Berdinis. My name's Graham Dobbin. We're on talkradio.nyc, and we'll be back after these messages.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy T, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Wise Content Creates Wealth. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Friday afternoon from 1 p.m. to 2. They say content is king. Well, wise content rules the world. Every episode features tools and tips for content marketing and business people telling the wise content stories of that success. Tune in every Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to the Mind Behind Leadership. We have another dancer. Everybody ends up dancing at some point to that theme tune. They just do. We can't help it. Michelle, we're going to talk about IP, copyright, trademarks, what's the difference. But just in a moment, just kind of finish off the last section, something that I thought about. Now, this is just me, you, and the listener. Okay, so you can tell me anything. What happens when you kind of open up a business and see that it's maybe not everything that it appears to be, and you're still trying to sell it? What happens then?
Yeah, I once heard somebody refer to that as this company is a mess discount.
So what do you do?
Like, based on your revenue times the multiplier, you should get this much. But when we opened up the box and we looked inside, it was so scary in there that we're going to give you half of that. A lot of times, if somebody comes to me and they say, I'm thinking about selling my business, I'd like, then, and I look in, the first thing I do is I look inside the box and okay, let's clean all this up. Right. Mm-hmm. Let's, for example, you've been paying your son a salary and he's not really working in the business, and that's lowering your profit. Right. So maybe let's get him off of that. Let's clean this up. So you've got 3 years worth of really clean financials, and let's fix this problem and fix that problem. Let's get this all like you're selling a house, right? Let's get everything fixed and nice and paint the walls, get it all really nice before we invite anybody in to have a look at it, because you're going to end up getting more money. That's just, it's really nice if you can keep it nice and tidy all the time, but if you can, at least clean it up before you go to sell.
Here's the thing, when people are selling houses, there's two things that happen, I think. One, they paint the walls to make it look better, make it look more appealing, make it look fresher. Or they put wallpaper on the walls to hide what's on the wall. And so they say, well, it's up to the buyer to find it. Not my problem.
Right. But see, well, not everywhere, right? In California, actually, but okay. So when you do an acquisition agreement or a merger agreement, right? An agreement whereby we're selling, there's going to be, it's almost always Section 3. And it can run anywhere from like 2 pages to 50 pages with reps and warranties, right? And it's going to say, these are my financials, attached as exhibit whatever are the last 3 years of my financial statements, and they are accurate, right? Here is a list of my equipment. It is an accurate list and everything is in good working order. Here, right? And I mean, and this goes on for pages after pages after pages, right? Here's a list of all of my sales contracts. Every one of these is legitimate and nobody's behind on their payments. Or here's a schedule for the ones that are behind, right? So you're giving all these representations and warranties, and typically there's an escrow. They hold back a portion of the purchase price for some period of time. We get to argue about what that period of time is going to be. And if any of that stuff turns out to not be true, yeah, we're taking it out of escrow, right? So you're not, I mean, nobody's going to buy, well, not nobody, but nobody who's my client is going to buy a business without getting reps and warranties from the other side.
Okay, I'm just going to put the tin of paint away then. Damn. Talk to me about why so we're hearing about that background. We're hearing about all these which must have been intriguing negotiations to get involved with, because everything's different. As much as there's a pattern at Section 3, we kind of know what needs to go in there. What goes in there is different. So you're unraveling all the time. Now you're a large part of the focus. I know not all of it, but a large part of the focus is around trademarks, IP, copyright, all this kind of stuff. Talk to us about this. Why is that important?
Yeah, so nobody really knows the differences between them. And that's not, we can focus a little bit on that, but they're the foundation of your business, right? I mean, lots of things are. Obviously, you need money and stuff like that, but let's just, take trademarks, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Most businesses don't have any protectable intellectual property other than their trademark, right? If you're in the fashion industry, that's all you got, right? If you're in services and sales, that's pretty much all you got. So you want to build that on a solid foundation. And typically what happens is somebody comes to me and they're starting their business. I mean, literally had a call this afternoon, and it's like, they use the wrong words, and that's okay. I want to copyright this when that's not a copyright thing. But they'll say, this is all I have and I want to protect it, right? They have this idea. They have this brand name, they've got like all these things, and I want to protect all of these things. It's up to me to figure out the ways to protect these things, but a lot of things you can't protect. They're not property, right? Most ideas, the methodology that I'm going to use to run this business, or the idea behind this business, 99% of the time, you can't protect that. So people are going to come in and they're going to compete against you, and they're going to be doing the same exact thing you are. Yep. So you need to get your head start. You need to get in there fast. And you typically need to rely on your brand, right? I don't want just a widget. I want a Dobbin brand widget, right?
Quite right too.
Right, exactly, right? Because they're the best. Everybody knows that. Absolutely, right? They're the best ones. And that's what you want to do, right? You want to make the world aware of the thing that, so that when they're going to look for a widget, they're going to buy your widget. Because, sorry, but widgets there's no other way to protect widgets, right? So yeah, and it's also, the years that I spent doing, I mean, I've always done IP law, but it was only like 15% of my practice, mm-hmm. and now it's almost 100%. But it's often the very first thing I have to do is give somebody bad news, right?
Right.
I know you love that trademark, but somebody else is already using it in your field, and if you use it, you're going to get a cease and desist letter, and it's going to hurt really bad. But it is so hard to talk somebody out of it. It is. We just talked about houses, but to people who are starting a business, it is their baby. And they have named the baby. And then you walk up to them and you go, oh, that's such a cute baby. What's her name? And they'll say, oh, her name is Jane. And you say, No, it's not. You can't call her Jane. What you need to call her actually is Joanna. Right? And it's like,
That's not good. That's not going to happen.
yeah, no, they don't want to
Yeah.
hear that. They
No.
don't want to hear that. And I've gotten really, different people have different personalities. There's the rare person who says, okay, that's fine, but that's very rare. I can usually tell you to within a couple of minutes how many minutes it's going to take me to talk this person down off the ledge. And the stories I'm going to have to tell them. And I have to put the scenario into their head. You're going to go out there, you're going to build everything on this brand, right? You're going to sell the hell out of this stuff. You're going to promote this. It's going to be great. And then you're going to get a cease and desist letter. You're building on a foundation of mud, and it is not going to work. And as bad as this news is today, it's going to be much worse news 2 years from now. So
Yeah, I suppose the more successful you become, the more that's invested for somebody to stop you from doing it.
Right. And you're going to hear from those other people at the worst possible moment.
Yeah.
Right. Just when you're getting traction, because that's when they're going to notice you. Right.
So you said that people use the wrong words. So we've got the trademark.
Right.
People say intellectual property or copyright or.
So intellectual property, right? This is intellectual property.
What's
okay?
that? Yep.
It's actually my hand, but
okay. I'm doing it for the listeners that won't be able to see it on Facebook later. That's all.
There's only four kinds of intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's patent,
mm-hmm.
copyright, trademark, and trade secret.
Mm-hmm.
If what you have doesn't fit into those things, it's not property. You can't own it exclusively from other people. That's it. Those are the only things that there are.
It seems to me, I mean, I've seen it in businesses that I've spoken with, there's this perception that if you just put the little C at the bottom of a piece of paper, I've copyrighted it now, and everything's going to be absolutely fine.
And well, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not talk about trade secret because it kind of doesn't fit the model that we're talking about. So trademark and copyright happen all by themselves.
Yep.
If you write, let's say, a white paper or something like that, you own the copyright to that now. It exists. It is not a registered copyright, but you own it. So what does it mean? Well, to register it, it's really inexpensive, really easy to do. And it's, you can't sue anybody for copyright infringement until you have a copyright registration. And there's advantages to getting that before somebody infringes. Okay, so that's great. But yes, you absolutely should put that little notice at the bottom of things to which you actually have a copyright. Okay. Trademark is the same thing. As soon as you start to sell something or provide a service using a particular brand, you have a trademark. Now, whether that trademark is infringing on somebody else's trademark is a completely different story. And it's not registered. So again, what I describe to people is a common law trademark, which is what that thing is that just springs into existence by itself, is like poking somebody with a toothpick. A registered trademark is hitting them upside the head with a baseball bat. Right, so you should register it. Partly because then you'll find out sooner rather than later that it's not available. And a patent doesn't exist until the government grants you one.
Yeah. So I suppose when you're looking at copyright then, what you're saying, you don't have it or you can't protect it properly until it's registered. Are we talking about having to register all the words, everything, the whole model of it, each one? Because I'm wondering what the point of the C at the bottom of the page is then. I know
you're putting people on notice, right? So right. if I put the C on the circle and then you use it in a way that infringes on my copyright, I can then register it and sue you.
Right.
I just think it's statutory damages, which is a really nice thing to get. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You could change a few things and you're all good.
Yeah, well, yeah. If somebody's written something and you want to tell people the same thing, you can't just change a few words, but you can write it in your own words, like recipes. You can't. There's no protection for a recipe,
Oh, I suppose so. Yep.
right? I can just say it a different way.
Look, we're going to go for a break. When we come back from the break, one of the things that I really want to do here is make sure that we discuss the women's leadership part and just what's happening there with why that's so passionate for you and why that's and why you want to get involved with that in New York. You're listening to Graham Dobbin. We're on talkradio.nyc. We're on the mind behind leadership, and we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauber, employment law business law attorney and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Michele Berdinis. Just one of the adverts there, Michele. I'm going to have to give a shout out to Jeff Goodman because I just noticed one of the things that's happening is for anybody that doesn't know, I'm dialing in. I don't know if we still dial in nowadays, but I'm connecting from Sydney in Australia, where we're in lockdown. And yet New York's opening up. So I'm watching this with great envy. But I just noticed that Jeff is starting his tours again. He does his walks. I'm going to put you in touch. I don't know if you've ever been on one, but they are absolutely outstanding. So that's another positive that's happening this year, that Jeff, rediscovering New York, is his walking tours in New York are beginning again, which is fantastic. Right, we are talking about New York. We're talking about women's leadership. I know this is something that's really, really passionate for you. It feels really personal for you that you want to see leadership development in general, but certainly especially women and in New York. I know you're involved in a lot. Just talk us through why that's the case.
You know, I didn't really come into my own in that way until quite late in life, like my mid-50s. And I had a strong actual personal bias against women professionals, an unconscious bias, but nevertheless a strong unconscious bias. And when I found that out and realized that, I started really working on myself and figuring out why I have that and where that came from and what I can do to change that. And I have found that working with other professional women and supporting each other, especially in the issues that tend to face women in leadership roles. It's helpful to me, and I find it's like a mutual thing. We can hold each other up. We can call each other out when we're dealing with the imposter syndrome, right? We can reassure people that, yeah, I go through that too. Here's how I deal with it. This is how I work on that. And it can just be really helpful to have role models and to mentor, and it's incredibly rewarding for me.
When we look at issues like, and I hear we actually talk about this a lot on here, about likes of imposter syndrome, that type of thing. And it tends to be, when we talk about it, it tends to be around about female leaders, women leaders. But I know for a fact that men have that as well.
They do.
We tend not to talk about it.
I don't know, maybe they're fearful, maybe even just talking about it is too scary. And I think that is true. I think especially, personality types of, if we talk about like narcissists, right? I mean, narcissists are the most insecure people in the world. It's absolutely, it's a men's issue and a women's issue, but.
So are the issues the same? It's how we approach the issues, do you think? That's actually just come to me. So it's not a trick question. I'm genuinely thinking this through, thinking, I wonder if we've actually got a lot of the same issues. It's how we approach them that's actually
Maybe it's more the way it manifests, right?
Okay,
when women start to feel like imposters, they pull back, right? They don't go for it. They say, oh, I can't do that, like in their heads, and then they kind of pull back from that. I think when, this is a overgeneralization, but when men feel insecure about that, they just get more blustery, right? They just push harder.
The reason I'm laughing, Michelle, because I'm thinking about this myself, and I think, if I'm ever in a place where I'm feeling vulnerable, I step forward.
Right.
I step forward into it.
Right. Sometimes wrong, never in doubt. That's the way I describe it.
No. Regularly wrong. Not sometimes, regularly. We spoke a few weeks ago, and we did I did a couple of these. It was at Harvard, the online
unconscious bias testing.
Unconscious bias testing for all different things. That was really insightful.
It is. It's fascinating. It's so eye-opening. And once you understand the methodology behind the testing, which I think is really important, and then you take the tests, and if you can face them, right? If you can face it and say, okay, at least I know this now. So what am I going to do about it, right? Now that I know I have these biases, what am I going to do about it? And, for me, it manifested personally, like, why do I basically have an unconscious bias against myself? And then all the unconscious biases that I have for other people. I mean, racial biases, it was scary. It was really scary. And the only good news is you can't work on that until you know that it exists. Yeah. And so as soon as you realize it exists, then you start in your head, you say, why did I think that? Why did I just have that idea about that person? Or why did I think that? Or why did I make that generalization? It's because I have an unconscious bias. Okay, so stop doing that. Like, take that away and go back and think about it.
Is this not a natural thing that we work on? Our brains filter through experiences, through what's happened in the past, through memories, through things that we've said or seen, or television programs we've watched, or how our families are. Do you not think that's just an instinctive thing that happens, and there's not necessarily anything else behind it?
No, I think it is instinctive. I think most of the problems left facing the world are things where those attributes really served us well 10,000 years ago on the Serengeti. right? If you came across somebody that you'd never seen before or doesn't look like you, they probably were going to kill you, right? So that was really good. Like the clan and putting the clan in the group that you're in ahead of everything else. It just doesn't work very well now. It's wrong. It's morally wrong now. So I think it is. I think that's what we have to do. We have to face these things. It doesn't make you a bad and immoral person to have unconscious biases. It just means you have to think about them and take those into account before you talk and before you act.
Look, we're coming towards the end of the show, and I'm slightly frustrated with myself because I think there's so much more that we can talk about women's leadership. One of the things that I've noticed here is the difference in attitude towards a number of different things. And it's really interesting where there will be, especially in Australia, where there are things, there's nothing else behind it. It's the experience, but things will be said that horrify me. And I've constantly got to reset myself. Like, this is just how it is. There's nothing major behind it, and it the thought process evolves. So looking at it, even we're divided by a common language of English again. So all of that getting put into the pot, I think it's really important that we focus, even if they are the same issues, that we focus on how they manifest themselves and how we approach them. Michele, I'm so sorry that we've come to the end. I've been absolutely fascinated. I'd love you to come on the show again. And I promise we'll kick off with the women's leadership stuff as well. Thank you, Beeline Legal and Michele Berdinis. Thank you to Sam Leibovitz for keeping us all right in the technical end behind all this. And join us again next Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, for the Mind Behind Leadership. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.